I think we'd only been going together about 5 months when Randy asked me. We were just sitting in the car. He was in the driver's seat and I was in the passenger seat, and he said that he was in love with me and wanted to marry me. So I was going to get married and thought I should go to a doctor and get things checked over. He found a large tumor. He thought it was on a fallopian tube, and in those days it was a little harder to really know where things were. It's not like we have all these fancy things today anyway. But when he got in there, he found out it was the uterus. It was a hysterectomy. So, of course, I'd never be able to have children. So I knew I had to tell Randy right away, which I did when he came to visit. And he came and visited 2 or 3 times, and I really didn't get much of an inkling of how it was going to be. Then when I went home, he came the same day that I got home, and I was on the sofa out in the living room. And he came in and didn't waste much time talking about anything. He just said that he felt that with his great mental capacities and everything, he should be able to have children, and of course I wasn't an appropriate vessel for his seed anymore, since I wouldn't be able to have his children. So he was canceling the wedding. I gave him back his ring, and then a few days later he came back with all the other gifts I had given him, and that was it. And I guess then he told the people in his church about it. His congregation was very upset with him and felt that that was no reason for somebody to break off the wedding, and I had gotten pretty close to a lot of them because I'd been visiting there, I'd been at youth group meetings, I'd been at congregational meetings, and they were very upset with what he had done and started very quickly to try to figure out how to get rid of him. And they managed eventually by getting the presbytery behind them also, and then he eventually left the town and left the state and left the region. But I didn't give up on having a baby, because that, I think, was what I was more interested in than getting married in the first place. But when I didn't have a lot of luck with the agencies, I talked to our minister and family friend, BJ. We were at a presbytery meeting in upstate, but we were staying in a motel, and it was one evening, I think it was, when we went outside and we were sitting just talking, and then he asked me, "Are you still interested in a baby?" He'd been looking for months, and I'd been going to all of the agencies, and we hadn't been talking about it much for some time because we just weren't having any success. And then he said, "Are you still interested?" And I said, "I certainly am." There was a baby in Ashland Hospital at that time who had no name and had been there for close to a month, probably 3 weeks or so, with still no name, so he thought it might be available for adoption, and he wanted, if I was interested, he would contact the doctor, which he did. We got back to Ashland on a Saturday, and BJ went to the hospital to find out more about the baby. He called the doctor on the birth chart. We talked to the doctor, and after the interview, he said the baby would be ours. And I went to my lawyer, Sam, and he started the paperwork with the birth mom. Well, my mother and I were at the front door because he had called and said he was on his way, and there he was with this little bitty baby. And it was so special to have her put in my arms, and it's one of those things that nobody will ever know what it feels like except the one who does it. And I've never had a minute's regret, ever, my whole life. Best thing that could have ever happened to me. my hope to her. I've been told it was the first ever single female parent adoption in Oregon and the third in the country, but I'm not so sure I believe that. Years later, a friend ran into Randy somewhere in Arizona or New Mexico, somewhere down there. They said that he was married and that he had a wife who'd had a couple of kids from another man, but that he himself had never had any. And they, the people from the church, were so happy about that. He'd never got a chance to plant his seed anywhere. I was 38 years old.